Australia's retirement income system is a topic of constant debate. But today, we're diving into a report from economist Dr. Cameron K. Murray that doesn't just call for reform, it calls for a complete teardown. The argument is that one pillar of the system is fundamentally broken, while the other actually holds the key to a better future.
And the report doesn't pull any punches. Its central argument is right there, crystal clear. Get rid of compulsory superannuation entirely. It claims the system fails on pretty much every important measure. So that's the provocative thesis we're going to explore in this explainer.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the proposal itself. Then we'll walk through the report's analysis of cost, economic efficiency, and fairness. After that, we'll look at the specific transition plan it suggests, and finally, we'll wrap up with the report's main conclusion. Okay, let's begin by setting the stage. In this first part, we need to be clear about the two systems at the very heart of this debate, superannuation and the age pension, and lay out the framework the report uses to judge them.
So what are we really comparing here? Well, the report frames them as two totally different models. On one side, you have superannuation, which is described as a system of mandatory private savings, basically a tax-friendly way to use your wages to buy financial assets. On the other side, there's the age pension, which is defined as public social insurance, a direct cash payment to eligible people funded by the public.
To compare these two very different systems, the analysis uses three specific economic yardsticks. First, microeconomic cost, which is all about the resources needed just to run each system. Second, macroeconomic efficiency, which looks at their impact on the wider economy. And third, fairness, which asks how well they actually serve the entire population.
And that brings us to the first test, cost. The question here is pretty straightforward. Which system uses up more of our economy's valuable resources, like labor and capital, just to keep the lights on?
Well, the report finds that the superannuation industry employs a staggering 55,000 people. Now, just to put that number into perspective, that's a workforce almost the size of the Australian Defence Force's permanent personnel.
And the financial cost is just as big. The report estimates that the annual cost to operate the superannuation system, mostly through fees, is about $36 billion.
Okay, so this is where the report's cost argument really comes into focus. When you put the two systems side by side, the numbers are pretty stark. Superannuation needs a huge workforce and costs $36 billion to serve 1.4 million people. The age pension, on the other hand, serves almost twice as many people for a tiny fraction of the cost and the workforce. But the really crucial number, according to the report, is the cost per dollar of benefit. It takes 90 cents to deliver a dollar of superannuation compared to just 4 cents for the age pension.
That leads us straight into the second criterion, macroeconomic efficiency. Here, we're shifting focus from the internal running costs to the ripple effects each system has on the entire economy. So what do we mean by that term in this context? Well, the report defines it as the system's overall effect on economic growth, consumer spending, and real-world investment. In simple terms, does it act like a gas pedal or a brake on the economy? According to this analysis, because way more money is flowing into super funds than is flowing out to retirees, the system actually pulls about $38 billion a year out of the spending economy. The report compares this to a kind of anti-stimulus package, a huge drag on the economy happening year after year. In contrast, the report claims the age pension does the exact opposite. It has a stimulating effect. It moves money from higher income groups, who might tend to save more, to retirees with lower incomes, who are much more likely to spend that money on everyday goods and services, giving a direct boost to economic demand. And that brings us to the third and final criterion, fairness. The analysis here tries to figure out how well each system provides a real safety net and whether it ends up making inequality better or worse. On these really fundamental measures, the report finds a massive difference. The age pension is universal for residents who meet the requirements, so it provides coverage, it relieves poverty, and it ensures a basic adequate income. By contrast, because super is tied to your past employment and income, the report argues it just doesn't provide these protections for the very people who need them the most. Now, this chart illustrates one of the report's most eye-opening claims. It suggests that for the bottom 80% of earners, compulsory super actually leads to a net loss in their total lifetime income. The argument is that this happens because of lower wages during their working life and potentially lower age pension payments later on. It's only the top 20% who see a net benefit. The final piece of the fairness puzzle, according to this analysis, is about tax. The report states that tax concessions for super add up to around $45 billion every year, and that these benefits flow overwhelmingly to high-income earners. The conclusion here is that the system actively pushes wealth upwards. Okay, so after that pretty thorough critique, the report shifts from identifying the problem to proposing a solution. It lays out a very specific plan to move away from compulsory superannuation and build up the age pension instead.
The proposed transition has three main steps. First, stop compulsory contributions and redirect that money directly into people's regular wages. Second, over a set transition period, allow people to withdraw up to a certain amount from their existing super balances each year. And finally, after that period ends, get rid of the special tax treatment for any super funds that are left.
And while all of that is happening, the other half of the plan is to seriously strengthen the age pension. This would include things like increasing payment rates, especially for renters, lowering the qualifying age down to 60, and making the eligibility rules broader to create a much more comprehensive safety net.
So finally, let's bring all these threads of cost, efficiency, and fairness together to look at the report's single core argument.
When you boil it all down, the ultimate takeaway from the report is this: superannuation isn't really working as a retirement income system. Instead, it argues that the age pension already does that job far better, more efficiently, and more fairly, and that it should be recognized and improved as Australia's main system for retirement security.
And that analysis leaves us with a final, thought-provoking question. If we accept the report's premise that a public pension is the best way to provide a dignified standard of living for people who aren't in the workforce, then it makes you wonder, at what age should that support actually start?